guys, heading into the courthouse. I plan to be there by noon. I was just doing some reading and I thought I would share a few interesting things with you guys about some of the most dangerous jobs in America. Do you guys know that the #1 most dangerous job, highest risk of death in America is construction? 1 in 5 deaths reported in the United States are from construction. It's a dangerous job. They're out there keeping us safe, right? Repairing roads, building new structures. The next most dangerous job after a construction worker was a nursing assistant. They have more reported injuries than any other job in America. After that, after a construction worker, again, having 1 in 5 deaths reported in the United States from construction work related injuries, or after that was nursing. Then we had correctional officers. Those working as correctional officers at prisons have a high risk of injury and death. After that, we have firefighters. Firefighters protect us. Firefighters have dangerous jobs. They have a more dangerous job, actually, and more reported injuries and death than police officers. After firefighters, it was farmers. Farmers have a higher risk of injury and or death than police officers. Then we had police officers on the list. They were on the top 10, but they are way down as far as injuries or risk of death go. So the food for thought for today is, would you justify a construction worker who has the most dangerous job in our country, who has a higher risk of death than any other job in our nation? How would you tolerate a construction worker coming to your house, kicking in your door, and telling you, I don't have to explain to you why I'm here because I have a dangerous job, and I just finished repairing a freeway so that you could drive to work safely? This whole idea that because we believe somebody has a dangerous job, therefore they can abuse their authority is absolutely ridiculous. We should be respecting all people in our country, regardless of what their jobs are. But if you guys want to know who has the highest risk of death and injury in this country, it is construction workers. And I don't know about you, but I'm not quite sure that somebody choosing to put their life on the line for me will ever give them, next to Jesus, give them the authority to come in and mistreat me and then later say, well, I'm here to keep you safe, therefore I can do whatever I want and you're not going to question me. So the next time somebody says to you that police can do whatever they want because they have a dangerous job, I want you to correct that person and tell them, no, actually construction workers have a more dangerous job than police, so therefore they can do whatever they want to you. They can arrest your friends, they can misuse their authority, they can enforce laws that aren't there for them to enforce, that aren't constitutional, because their job is dangerous and they're here to keep you safe, and they collect a paycheck, and therefore there is not going to be any level of accountability within the people. So there you have it. You have a higher risk of injury or death being a farmer than you have being a police officer. Do I respect police officers? I respect them because they're human beings, just like I respect firefighters. But it doesn't mean that somebody is going to be able to mistreat me and I'm going to justify it because they're a firefighter and they chose to take on a dangerous job, and therefore they can act without consequence. And that's what we see right now in much of our police force, is that they get to act without consequence. And the first response people make is, they're here to keep us safe. Well, so are firefighters. So if you're going to apply that one way, let's just apply it all the way across the board and give construction workers the authority to take our properties, to mistreat us, to steal our cars, search us, and to essentially regulate us and put laws in place, because after all, they have a dangerous job. So a little bit of food for thought for you guys, and hope you're all having a good day. Hey guys, Kelli Stewart here, reporting from the courthouse. I'm gonna just actually address kind of a follow-up to the recording that I did on the way to court today, because this whole thing that we have of not holding our officials accountable is really weighing on me. Let's see, how can I just get right to it? If you haven't watched the video I did on the way to court, I'm going to ask that you would watch that first, maybe, to understand better what I'm saying here. But what I want to know from the people is, when is it okay to take away somebody else's life, liberty, or property? When, what position do we say has the right to do that? In this community of patriots, I am continuously hearing that the government does not have the right to take away the life and the liberty and the property of the people. I hear that we want to hold the president accountable. We want to hold all of our representatives accountable. But what I don't hear is that we want to hold our police accountable. And so I'm asking you to consider this. I'm asking you to take the most dangerous job that you can find out there. So maybe go online and Google it. There's a ton of different opinions on what the most dangerous job is. Find the most dangerous job out there. Whether it's a construction worker or a miner or a farmer, whatever it is. And tell me this, in that most dangerous job, do they have the right to take away your life, liberty, and your property? Would you submit to them because they have a dangerous job? So then my next point that I would want to make is, if a construction worker showed up at your house and forced himself in because he had a dangerous job, would you not hold him accountable and remind him that his job is not to take away your rights? His job description is very clear, and it doesn't involve coming in and forcing himself against your life, your liberty, or your property. So if we can understand that with, say, a construction worker, why can we not understand that the first line of defense is going outside of their job description? Their job description is to keep the peace, is to protect the people's life, liberty, and property. It's not to extort us. It's not to abuse us. It's not to steal our possessions and our property. It's not to hold us in jail without bail because somebody told them to. That's not their job description. Their job description is to see that justice is served, as far as it depends on them. So I see that a lot of people want to hold Dan Love accountable for what happened in Bunkerville. Why? He was just doing what he was told. What about the man who shot Lavoy Finicum? He was just doing what he was told. At what point can we say that there is no difference in the accountability we should be extending to Dan Love and to the everyday police officer who's just doing what he was told? How about the officer who shot Lavoy Finicum compared to the officer standing outside the courthouse right now? They're all just doing what they were told. I am not going to continue sitting by and pretending to be a part of a community that wants to hold Dan Love and the person who killed Lavoy Finicum accountable, but refuses to see that they were just doing their jobs. No different than the police officer who holds these guys without bail, who denies them their rights to their attorney, to their choice of attorney, who denies them a right to a speedy trial. All of these people are just doing their jobs. So now let's go back to my video I did 2 days ago, where I said if a woman is abusing a child because, say, her husband told her to, are you going to stop her, or are you going to go to her husband? Now say you went to her husband. Say you go to her, she's beating the crap out of her kids. You go to her and you say, stop. And she says, I'm just doing what I was told. My husband told me to, and he pays me to do this, and I have bills to pay. And so you leave her be and you go to the husband. You write him letters. You go to his office. You go to his home. You do everything you can to get him to tell her to stand down, and he refuses. He won't even respond to you. What do you do? What do you do to save those kids who are being abused? You go back to the abuser and you say, I don't care what you think your job description is. You're infringing on the life and the liberty and the property of these individuals. Your job description is wrong, and you have a moral compass that you need to honor. I don't care who tells you to do this. You're not doing your job. Your job as a mother is not to beat your children. That's not your job. We have to get out of this mindset that it is a police officer's job to do what he's told. It's not true. It is a police officer's job to protect the life and the liberty and the property of the American people, even against their own government. That is the police officer's job. And I can stand behind that. And I can say, if a police officer does that, he's a good police officer. Show me one police officer who is not taking away the life and the liberty and the property of the American people because he's just doing his job. Why are we handing out constitutions to the public? Why are we not outside of the jails, outside of the police departments, educating them, protesting, letting them know peaceably in a loving manner that they're not doing their jobs, that their job description as outlined in the Constitution is not to rob the people of their life and their liberty and their property. Even the criminals, you guys, if you won't fight for the rights of the criminals, that's how they get these laws passed. They say, this person is a criminal. Don't you want us to take away their weapons? And we go, yes, take away their guns. They're felons. And then they come over here and they go, oh, you're now a felon because you stole something that was over $1,000. Guess what? The right you just took away from that criminal, you just took away from yourself. The rights you guys want to take away from other people with free speech, and I'm learning a lot on this too, right? What it means to fight to protect somebody else's free speech, even if I don't like their speech, because it's a constitutionally God-given protected right that does not infringe on anybody else's life, liberty, or property. Doesn't matter what you think that person is saying that's taking away your liberty, it's not. It's not. Anybody can say anything, and it is constitutionally protected. There is no such thing as hate speech in the Constitution. There's not. So in this community, you guys need to be fighting to protect each other's freedom of speech, including me. I need to fight for that too. To protect people's liberty, to liberty the way that they want a liberty, and to protect their property. Not their feelings, not their opinions of what somebody else did. Their property. Protect people's property, even the criminals' property. We're not in Nazi Germany. We're not in China. People have constitutionally protected rights. They're innocent until proven guilty. In this own community, I see you guys finding people guilty of things and they haven't even had a fair trial. Heck, they haven't even seen all the evidence against them. How is this any different, you guys, than what our government is doing to us? We have to fight to protect each other's rights. Life, liberty, property, whether you like the person or not. Fight to protect their rights, because in doing so, you protect yours. And the day that you tell me it's okay for a cop to abuse the American people by carrying out laws because he's just doing his job is the day I'm going to tell you that the next time a construction worker is given permission to kick your door in because he thought something bad was happening because the law told him he had permission to, I'm going to say, you know what? You did this to yourself. You gave the police the authority to uphold laws that abuse the people, and now laws are being made for anybody to go out and do this. What if firefighters tomorrow are given the rights to come and kick your door in if they think there's a problem? Are you going to submit? Are you going to say, get out of my house? What are you doing? No, we think there's a problem. Who are you? What's your name? Open your door. Show me your possessions. I'm detaining you. Oh my gosh, you guys, you'd have a fit, right? You wouldn't go, okay, I'm going to submit because you're a firefighter and you're here to protect me. Every other day when maybe there's a criminal or there's a big fire happening or whatever, you're going to protect me. So therefore, the other days of the week, you get to take away my constitutionally protected rights. I don't care what your job is that the government has given you. You still have a moral compass. You still have a moral obligation. You swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. That's an oath you swore as a police officer. So I'm changing part of my focus. So I've been focused on educating the people when we're down here in Portland. I don't know why I'm educating the people, because most of these people don't care if they're being abused or not being abused as long as they feel safe, right? They'll pay, they'll give away their rights all day long as long as they feel safe. I want to start educating the police officers So the other day, remember I told you guys I have police in my family. One of the police officers that I'm close to has now read the entire book, Only by Blood and Suffering, from Lavoy Finicum, and he's a quarter of the way through the book that I got from Chris Ann Hall at the John Day meeting. He knows where I stand. I don't tell him he's a good cop. I tell him this is the description of a cop: protect people's life, liberty, property, okay? Be a peacekeeper, de-escalate situations, only use force when force is necessary, only fire if you're truly in fear of your life, not because the guy ran. You don't get to kill somebody because they ran from you. You get to kill somebody because you're in jeopardy of your own life, okay? So unless you're doing all of those things, I'm not going to say you're a good cop, and I'm also not going to say I'm a cop hater, because that's like saying if a construction worker kicks my door in and I tell him to get out, that now I'm a construction worker hater. No, I just want him to do his job. Do his job, and his job is not to take away my rights. So I'm very honest with my loved ones about where I stand. I'm very black and white on things. That's what got me into this to start with, was right is right and wrong is wrong. And what this government is doing to the people is wrong. And the enforcers on the front lines are the only reason that these laws are even still here. If nobody would enforce the unconstitutional laws, nobody would be getting abused, right? If no mother would beat her children just because her husband told her to, then no children would be getting beat. I don't care how many laws get put into place from a husband that says you have to beat your children. They're not going to be abused. If the women say, no, absolutely not. So, I forgot where I was going with that, like I always do when I get on rants. So my focus is changing. So I'm going to start educating the police officers. I'm going to start going into the precincts and saying, I have constitutions. I want to educate you. I want to teach you. I want to help you understand what your actual job description is. Not because I hate you, but because I love you, and you're doing the wrong job right now. You're doing the job of a bully is what you're doing. Sometimes, yes, you arrest bad people, but even in the arrests of the wrong people, the Constitution is being trampled on because these people are not getting due process in the courts. This was really hard for me to grasp because about a year ago, I would have said, I don't care less what happens to the criminal. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm talking like we're in China or Germany or something. Of course we have to care what happens to the criminal, because by the government standard, we're all criminals. By the government standard, if you own a constitution and you believe that it should be upheld, you're a terrorist. So we have to protect all people's rights, even if they're people we don't agree with. Fight for them. Fight for them. Because in doing so, you're fighting for yourself. I don't hate the police, but the police are the ones abusing the American people. Even the criminals are being abused. That should not be. We have this thing in this country called due process, right? You guys want it for Ammon and Ryan. You want it for Pete Santilli. You want it for Josh Burleson. Okay, so do you just want it for the people you want it for? Or do you want to understand that that's an American privilege that we have? Because our founding fathers fought and died, that privilege would be protected. You have to take on that fight for your founding fathers now and go and protect other people's rights. You have to do that if you're going to claim to desire to uphold the United States Constitution. You can't take away each other's rights and then sit here and crucify Dan Love. Dan Love was just doing his job. At least he got a paycheck. Some of you guys out there that are crucifying each other and telling everybody how to live liberty, you're not even getting a paycheck. You're just doing it because you're that ignorant. At least Dan Love and at least Brett Singh and at least the officers who shot Lavoy had orders from somebody. Who gave you your orders to take away somebody's free speech with force? Who gave you those orders? Who gave you the right to decide how other people get to express themselves and have their liberty? What side are you fighting for? There are two sides right now. Those who want to be free and those who want to keep us captive. Which side are you on? Decide what side you're on, and then go to the people you believe are holding you captive, whether it's the police, whether it's the elected officials, whether it's the president, and start educating, sending information, teaching what it means. But as you're teaching, you have to be fighting to protect those rights in your own community as well. Otherwise, you're nothing but a hypocrite. If you get to determine how somebody talks to a police officer, then you're a hypocrite, because you're telling the government that they can't tell us what we can and can't say. Yes, to my trolls, my brain is going to explode some days, because I love all the people that we're working with, even the people I don't like. But oh my gosh, you guys, the hypocrisy has got to stop. It has to stop. Fight for the rights of all people, even the protesters you don't like, because the government doesn't like us. You want them to give us the rights, right, to protest them, whether that's occupying a federal building or taking a stand in Bunkerville on our own land. So fight for the rights of other people, even if you don't agree with their message, even if you don't agree with their delivery. Still fight that their rights would be protected and they would not be criminally prosecuted when they stay within the bounds of the Constitution. That means they are not to infringe on somebody else's life, their liberty, or their property. Fight for those three things, and then educate those people who are not fighting for those things, including law enforcement, especially law enforcement, especially law enforcement, especially law enforcement. Did you hear that word? Most of the laws are unconstitutional. They are law enforcement. They're enforcing the laws that you're complaining about. Go to the police, educate them. Tell them that they're not acting within their authority. They're not doing their job. Tell them what their job is. And when they're outside of the bounds, quit defending them. And if I'm outside of my bounds, don't defend me. And if somebody on the ground in another state is outside of their bounds of life, liberty, and property, don't defend them. Get out of the factions. You guys, we're one people. We're one people in this country, and we all want the same rights. So go out and fight for the rights of your neighbor today. And in doing so, you'll be protecting the rights of your children. I'll do a courtroom update later. I just had to do a second part of my message earlier when I was headed in. And if you don't like it, then don't like it. Get off my page. Go out and do liberty how you want. I'll protect your right to go on your page and slander me. I will fight for that. I'm learning to fight for that, because that's what makes America different. And I want to be what our founding fathers wanted us to be. I don't want to be dictated and controlled and told we're going to be physically assaulted if we say something somebody else doesn't like. I don't want to be that. So I'm going to fight to protect you as well. So that's all. I'm going to get back inside. It's a kangaroo court hearing. Somebody said to me today, how do these kangaroo court hearings continue being allowed to happen? How are they allowed to take away their rights to a trial by jury? And you know what I said? Because they have people with guns all around them protecting them. That's why. So instead of going to the elected officials and the judges, we need to be talking to these marshals. We need to be talking to these police officers saying, do you know that you're protecting the judge as she abuses the American people and takes away their constitutionally protected right to a trial by jury? Do you know you're doing that? I'm going to say that multiple times before I leave today. That's how much I care about these people. I want them to know what their job is and what their job isn't. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, you're a nice guy, but you're kind of a terrorist. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, okay? You're either abusing people or you're not abusing people. So everything happening right now is happening because of the law enforcers, U.S. Marshals, police, all of that. It's all happening right now because of them. You know, the guys that you want to talk about being good guys, okay? That's why the judge gets to do what she does. That's where her authority comes from, is from the weapons and the guns. It doesn't come from what's written in the law, because we know that the police officers break the law all the time and they're not held accountable. So at the end of the day, it comes down to the weapons. It doesn't come down to the law. It does not come down to the law. The law says they have the right to a trial by jury and they're not getting it. Why? Because what are the people to do? What are people to do? Okay, that's all. Love you guys. Bye. Yeah, I might be in a bad spot. I'm gonna do a quick reporting from the day so that I can clear my head of it. Here with Jake Ryan.
What up?
Holding his pocket constitution.
Oh yeah.
That's how we roll. Okay. So, let's see. I guess I could invite people. Maureen, Lindsay, Deb, John, Gavin, all my people invite. Okay, I'm just inviting a few people here. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna try to dump my thoughts on the day to go home and get rid of all my notes. So I did post, or I will post Becky Wald's notes. There we go, from the day. Hey guys, Becky, I'm gonna get your notes posted as soon as I finish this. So what I wanted to do is go over what happened at lunchtime. I think this was really important, what happened at lunchtime, because it was regarding the OPB situation here. I'm gonna have to make Jake hold my phone. Let's see. I'm so not set up to be a reporter. Okay. The reason that what happened at lunchtime with OPB is important is because it did show that the government, or that the judge was willing to protect the rights of the press, even at the expense of forfeiting the rights of the people. So I'm going to turn this down so I can think. So Gabriel isn't here for this trial, just Ethan Knight and Barrows, which is really nice, because Gabriel was quite obnoxious. But Judge Brown is still there, so I'm not sure that we really have a win in this. Okay, so during lunch they brought in, I really didn't understand what was going on with the whole issue with OPB. So the first trial, one of the main reasons Ryan Bundy did not take the stand is because there was an interview he did with OPB where he made some statements that they were trying to take and say that the statements mean that he intentionally conspired to impede officers from doing their job. Now, in the statement that he made, and correct me if I'm wrong, do you remember, Jake, hearing the whole statement that they read, that they want to present? There was something in the statement, where he says something along the lines of the employees basically are not going to be able to come back to work. And so he did not want to take the stand, because as soon as he took the stand, hey guys, they would be able to then present this OPB interview and use it against him. So this interview that was being debated on today was the entire reason Ryan Bundy did not take the stand this last time around. Otherwise, he would have been great on there. So the government now is taking that very interview and they're introducing it as evidence. Why are they allowed to enter it as evidence? I don't know, because Ryan Bundy has been found not guilty. So why does his statements to OPB even matter? Totally lost my train of thought. The reason that they want to introduce them is to show that he intended to impede officers from doing their jobs. The judge all week has been calling him a co-conspirator, an alleged co-conspirator. Why is she allowed to do that when he's not a co-conspirator? He was found not guilty of being a conspirator. So why his statements matter, I don't know. So we basically had 4 positions today during lunch. We had the judge's position of listening to all the case, and she's bought and paid for by the federal government. So why we think she's not going to be biased, I don't know. And side note, her husband or wife, whichever one she has, I don't know, is a police officer. Did anybody on here know that? Did you know that before today?
The
Judge Brown's significant other is a police officer?
No.
Hello, talk about bias. Anyway, so message from Sarah. I'll read that afterwards. If I can read it to you guys, we'll see. So we had 4 different positions at lunch. We had the judge, we had OPB was there with their attorneys, and OPB is saying that they want the story to be presented, but they do not want any of the things that they edited out that allowed them to build the story. They don't want any of those things to be used because those are protected as the free press. They also didn't want to have to take the stand. So they're saying take the story that was posted to the internet, but you don't get any of our editorial notes, you don't get any of the behind the scenes work, you only get the story. Then you have the prosecution. The prosecution is saying we want OPB's story to be presented to incriminate the rest of the group as co-conspirators with Ryan Bundy. The government is saying we don't care if OPB testifies or not, because they believe that the entire interview was conclusive in and of itself and says everything they want it to say and involves the whole story and should be presented just as it is, whether OPB testifies that it was all-inclusive or not. Then you have the defense. The defense is saying, if you're going to allow this information to be admissible into court, then we want the reporter to take the stand. The reason we want him to take the stand is because as soon as, part of the statements at the beginning of OPB's story, they talk about this armed takeover by militants. There are things that they state that are outside of facts. There is no information as to where they got these facts. Did Ryan Bundy say they're armed militants taking over a facility? We don't know, because they're not giving the court any of the editorial process. They're only giving them the final story. So the defense is saying that there is a lot in this story that is not factual, that didn't come from Ryan Bundy's mouth, but came from the opinion of the author. That did come from only the opinion of the author. The defense said that if he is subpoenaed and has to testify, that they will be able to discredit him and the statements he made about the group, because my phone is blowing up. Because this journalist tweeted, yes, your tweets can get you in trouble, so be careful how much of a tweeter you are. He tweeted things like, my notes are not anywhere as organized as Becky's. He tweeted things like, these people are thugs, these people are terrorists, and I am disappointed in the verdict. So the fact that they're allowing a reporter's story in as evidence, and the story contains opinions, is what is so concerning to the defense. So you had those four positions. At the end of the judge listening to all of this, she continued making statements that was making Jason Patrick crazy, rightfully so. Statements like that she wanted to make sure, if she made the reporter take the stand, that he wasn't being forced to share anything that was outside of his privileges as a reporter, his privileges and his rights as a reporter. The reason is, if reporters have to turn over everything in their editorial process and take the stand, one, it will make reporters not want to go into certain situations, and two, it'll make people involved in those situations not want to talk to the reporters. So they kind of want this rightful protection for the press, so that the press will be interested in getting the story out, and they won't be worried about incriminating themselves or having to incriminate the people that are talking to them in the future. That their job is just to get the story out as seen by the person they're reporting on. But this reporter has a bias, so there's all this stuff he included in what the government wants to present that's opinion, and it's not just opinion, it's biased opinion against the defendants. Okay, so the judge is talking about how she wants to protect their rights, and I'm so happy that she wants to protect the rights of the press, because it's a constitutionally protected right in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. But there's other things in that amendment as well, like the right to free speech, and we don't have free speech, and the right to peaceably assemble and to present our government with a redress of grievance. In the last trial, the prosecution actually said a redress of grievance isn't even a legal document. So again, I'm really hung up on this word hypocrisy. The fact that the judge can sit there and say, I want to make sure that their First Amendment rights are protected as the press, but then we spent 90% of the day looking at guns and bullets as if weapons are what's on trial here in America, where people have the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. So you just end up constantly wondering, why do they even talk about the Constitution when it's really ultimately the Supreme Court that decides what we have the right to and what we don't have the right to. And right now the Supreme Court has continued ruling in favor of the press, but not in favor of our Second Amendment. So it's not really about a constitutionally protected right. It's about basically what does the King federal government say that we can or can't do. So in the end, the judge ruled that it would be going against the privileges and the rights of the press to make this editor or author or reporter, I don't even know what you want to call him, reporter, take the stand. So that was a really big blow to the defense, because she didn't throw out the evidence of Ryan Bundy's story. So she's protecting the rights of the reporter, but not the rights of the other defendants. So Ryan Bundy was found not guilty. Now he is going to have to make the decision if he will come back and testify on behalf of the defense to explain how biased the story was and to explain anything that maybe we're missing that isn't in this story. So he's going to have to give up his Fifth Amendment right to not speak and incriminate himself further, because he is still facing charges with the camera issue, although they haven't done anything about that. But the government even said, we didn't anticipate Ryan Bundy would come, and we anticipate that he will plead the Fifth, you know, the constitutionally protected right. Anyway, we assumed he would plead the Fifth because he still has charges that he's facing in Oregon, and he's currently facing charges in Nevada. The judge said that will be up to Ryan Bundy, that she's not going to say yes or no on the evidence with the interview. She called him co-conspirator 20 times. She said, I do see that this evidence is admissible because he is a co-conspirator in the charges, and that's really ridiculous because he's not a co-conspirator. He was proven not guilty of conspiring to impede federal officers from doing their job. So why would we be taking a statement from Ryan Bundy and trying to, I mean, can you imagine this? If Ryan Bundy was found not guilty, and say his statements about what they were doing at the refuge get used against these guys, and say they end up being found guilty, they will have taken words from somebody who was seen as a leader at the refuge, who was acquitted or found not guilty of all charges, and used his words to find other people guilty of the charges that he wasn't even guilty. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. If she was going to protect the press and say they didn't have to take the stand and they didn't have to provide the backstory to the guy's story, and explain where he came up with these details that he was providing the public, you know, because they were lies, they were biased lies, and she's not going to make him explain where those came from, then she should also be throwing out all of the evidence and not making the defense spend time scrambling now trying to figure out if Ryan will come and testify on their behalf or not. So I think that's it. It felt much more intense when we were in there to listen to all the parties and to sit in the room and watch the prosecution, the defense, and then the attorney with OPB, and then the judge, all trying to figure out what they were going to do. And for those of us who have watched Judge Anna Brown all year, we knew what she was going to do. She was going to protect the rights of the press, and she was also going to continue favoring on the side of the government, and that's exactly what she did. So to continue hearing all of this stuff about, hi Lisa, to continue hearing all this stuff about why she's going to protect the press and how it's their constitutionally protected right, it's a little bit nauseating when the Constitution is not truly being upheld in this courtroom. If it was, there would not have been one gun showed. They wouldn't be able to steal the weapons of other Americans. When the people left the refuge, they would have all taken their property, life, liberty, and property would have come with them. They would have been granted the right to petition their government for redress of grievance out at the refuge. If you're gonna protest the government, one of the best places to do it is probably at a public building that's being mismanaged or misrun or unconstitutionally owned by said government. To go protest the government like at your house, I don't know, it probably wouldn't be very impactful. So in all reality, they had a constitutionally protected right to go to the refuge, to be heard, and again, that was a last resort. They went, they met with the police, they met with the sheriff, they called out to the FBI, nobody would hear them, and they took, their last resort was to take the hard stand and take back the building that belonged to the people that was stolen by the federal government unconstitutionally, and take their hard stand. And it was beautiful, and it's exactly what they should have done. And I know that's not what a lot of people think, but nonetheless, it was still what they should have done. So that's it. When we left the courtroom, Jason's first words were, "I'm so happy the rights of the press were upheld and the rights of the people were completely trampled on." And he was completely accurate in what we watched. There is no justice in these courts. You cannot have justice in these courts when you have, you have a federal judge ruling on a federal case regarding federal lands. They're all coming from the same master at the end of the day, and you're just not going to get justice. Somebody said yesterday, I think it was a recording I was listening to of Gary Hunt. He was saying that justice is the absence of injustice. And it really made me think about the last trial. Justice was not served in the last trial, because in order for there to have been justice, you would have had the absence of injustice. Ammon Bundy, Ryan Bundy, and David Fry were denied a speedy trial, and they were denied bail. Wait, would they be considered denied a speedy trial? Was that denial of a speedy trial? I know this group, and I know Nevada.
Yes, it would.
What would a speedy trial be? Isn't it like 45 days or something? It's like a really quick one, would be
that's why it's called
speedy trial. Okay. So, but the biggest thing for me is that they were denied the right to bail. So that's a constitutionally protected right that they were denied. So them being found not guilty is how it should have been, but it doesn't mean that there wasn't complete injustice the entire time that they were incarcerated. Everything from the times that they were all put in, although I do have faith in jurors, having faith in the jurors, Shar, doesn't mean that there's justice in the courtroom. It really doesn't. If there's justice in the courtroom, these people would be able to speak freely when they're on the stand. They wouldn't be able to be silenced. When they say, will you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, they're not allowed to. They can't tell the whole truth. They can only tell the parts of the truth that fit the narrative of the government. So while I have faith in some of the jurors, we witnessed in the last trial that, you know, we had the ex-BLM agent on the stand, or in the jury group. So had juror 4 not called out juror 11, it would have been a hung jury, and we would have possibly been going back to court again. So, I mean, I have some faith in the jurors, but at the end of the day, the jurors are one piece of our due process. So I'm not going to say, oh good, the jurors did their part and they proved that, you know, these guys were not guilty of the alleged crimes. Because all along the way, for months and months and months, these people were being mistreated, held basically hostage in their own country because our government's afraid of them. Not because they're a threat to the public, they're a threat to the government. So we can't really say that they got due process. We can't really say that they had justice served. Justice served would mean at the end of that, there would have been the next trial. And that trial would have included every officer and FBI agent who was present at the ambush, who set them up. Who set them up in an illegal roadblock, who fired the vehicle at them. There would have been a whole trial that we would have been able to witness, and then we go, okay, we're getting into some steps here now of justice. There would have been some payment back, some restitution paid for wrongfully incarcerating them. Are they going to give any restitution to David Fry for denying him bail because they said he was a threat to himself? He was innocent, and he should have been released and granted bail. I mean, we have sex offenders and murderers walking the streets, and these men were not granted bail. So justice has not been served. None of the people who were leading the witnesses on the side of the prosecution and the government were held accountable. The prosecution sent FBI agents to go and question and intimidate Dwayne Schrock. Jury tampering or witness tampering, no justice there. So one piece of the puzzle was there was some justice, but in overall pieces here, or picture here, justice was not served. Justice was not served. In fact, I think Neil Wampler still hasn't even gotten his stuff back. Justice was not actually served. So I think they can testify, Laura, and they don't have to travel. But here's the thing that they said the last time around with Nevada. They wanted to indict the guys for Nevada while sitting in the Portland courtroom. And every one of them said, absolutely not. If you're going to make us go through 2 trials simultaneously, then you better believe you're going to cart our happy tucuses all the way to Nevada. You're going to have to deal with everything along the way. We're not going to make this easy on you for us to deny us our rights, because it was already totally wrong that they... sorry, phone call. It was already totally wrong that they were trying to do that to them. So the guys were willing to say, you know, it's going to be hard on us, but it's also going to be hard on you. We're not going to make this any easier. So, let's see. So they could totally do things over Skype, but they're not going to make this any easier on the government than they have to. Let's see, are there any other? Yes, courtroom observers, Lindsay, are so important to hold these courts accountable. I'm not sure that it matters at the end of the day in the big scheme of things, but I really do think it puts some pressure. Sorry, phone call. I think it does put some pressure on the judge and put some pressure on the prosecution, knowing that there's eyewitnesses. They still hold all the guns, so there's only so much that, you know, our little peons of presence can accomplish, but we're still gonna show up. There's still a lot of people coming, and so that's great. Let's see, is there anything else? Any other questions? Everybody looked great. Angie, Lisa. All right. Do you want to say anything, Jake? I'm going through to see if there's any.
Can't think of
Oh,
anything
come
off the top of
on.
my head.
Think of something. We did talk to a police officer at lunch. I gave him 2 constitutions. I shook his hand and I told him that to be a good police officer, it was really simple. He just needed to make sure he was protecting people's life, liberty, and property. And if he was doing that, he had nothing to worry about. He told me he would go home, he would look through the Constitution, and that he would ask himself that question, if he is able to actually do his job and protect people's life, liberty, and property. And then before he left out the door, I gave him a second one, and I asked him if he'd give it away to one of his friends. You know, I respect him as a person, but at this point, if he thinks that he can, you know, if he thinks asset forfeiture is legal, to steal somebody's possessions just because the law said so, you know, again, remember the little box of a job description. If we truly believe that the press had constitutionally protected rights today, then we believe that police officers have a job description. And when they take an oath to the Constitution, their first obligation is to uphold the rights of the people and life, liberty, and property. And so if they're not doing that, I just can't say that they're doing, you know, that they're doing their job. But anyway, let's see. Say something, Jake.
Well, I guess all I have to say is take a step back and look at where we are, and you got to decide for yourself. You're going to take a stand or not. I really got nothing more to say. I mean, I could go on, but it's simple.
Yep.
Truth and liberty and all that is real simple.
It's simple. It's not hard. We make this more complicated than it has to be, really. If every police officer you saw, you walked up to every day and gave him, you know, a constitution and said, hey, I thank you for taking on this public service position, but if you're at all using that weapon to intimidate and threaten people and rob them of due process, then I need to give you one of these little booklets you need to read. You need to understand what nation you're in and what our founding fathers fought for, and they did not fight so that the people could be overrun by rules and regulations. That's not a free country. And if you don't believe that, that's totally okay too. But you know, you can't hold on to what you say is your constitutionally protected rights if you're then going to forfeit everybody else's rights by supporting the very people who enforce the unconstitutional laws to us. So accountability is an easy thing, really. It's really not that hard. I mean, some people are gonna be more excited about it when they do it. Some people are gonna be super calm, but at the end of the day, the question should remain the same. Are you willing to hold your public officials accountable? You know, everybody wants to hold everyone wants to hold the FBI agents accountable, and they really don't even have the same level of authority to the people as the police and the sheriffs. So I think we're running from maybe some of the areas we really should be going after. Maybe we feel it's just too hopeless of a cause, so we just sit on Facebook and complain, but that's not going to get us anywhere, you guys. You each have an obligation to stand up and make sure that people around us in office are doing their jobs. And if they're not, then be loving, but talk to them and let them know. Take some tours, get some friends together, and go to some police departments and ask them some hard questions about the Constitution, and see if you can get a few of them to unite with you and take a form of a stand. And maybe 1 or 2 areas that they'd say, you know, no, if I was told to uphold that law, I won't do it. I'll draw a line in the sand, you know. And I mean, how great would it be if whenever we're protesting, we had officers joining with us, you know, when they're off duty and standing and saying, no, I'm not going to comply with your ridiculous laws. I made an oath, and my character and my integrity is worth more than the paycheck that you're bribing me with, and the authority and the power that you're trying to pump me up with to make me mistreat these people in this country. So yeah, I don't think it has to be so difficult. It doesn't have to be a hate or love situation. It's just simple accountability. So blah. Okay, I think that's all. Is there anything else?
No.
Say bye to Lisa and Angie and
See ya.
Lindsay. All right.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys. We'll see you Monday. Blaine's on Monday, and it sounds like Ammon's on Tuesday. And Lisa, I got the message about the question with Ammon after we were already through traffic and a long ways away from the courthouse. So I'm sorry I didn't go back in and check, but I can go up there in the morning and see. So that's all. Love you guys. Bye. Take a stand.